Welcome to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke, and today's guest is Renu Mehta Cheng. She is a spiritual teacher, energy healer, and Akashic Records consultant. Her work involves guiding her clients through the spiritual awakening process to tap into their inner wisdom and reach their full potential. In this episode, we'll discuss how to use energy healing to become our own best guide and healer. Renu, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me today, Johnny. It's an honor.
So, you are a spiritual teacher, an energy healer, and Akashic Records consultant. How is that different from an Akashic Records reader, or is that the same thing?
Well, I am an Akashic Record reader, but I'm a consultant because the process for me to get certified was I had to do a very specific number of readings for individuals, and it was a large number, so it took about 7-8 months to finish all those readings. And I did about a maybe 9-month career mastery course. So I was able to become a consultant that way.
And that's interesting. This is probably the first time I've heard about a certification for Akashic Records readers. It reminds me of the Forever Family Foundation, which is just one nonprofit that certifies mediums. Are you familiar with that?
No.
What they do is they have the mediums read back-to-back Skype sessions with people they don't even know, and then they quiz the sitter, see how effective the medium is. Now, is the program that you went through, is that exhaustive in the same fashion, or is it completely different?
Well, what I had to do was find 75 people to read their records. I was only allowed to duplicate someone twice, so maybe 20 people. But the rest had to be brand new people, and I didn't know most of them. So in the beginning, when I started this work, I would just ask friends and family who were willing for me to read their records. And then eventually word of mouth came, and so then I had a lot of clients come, and it was a nice day to reach my 75th.
Okay.
It was a long process, yeah.
So were you graded on the performance of the readings or not necessarily?
Well, when I was done that, then I had to read for my teachers.
Okay. Sounds like it's similar, which is good. The reason I bring up the Forever Family Foundation, one of the founders, maybe the founder, Bob Ginsberg, wrote a book called The Medium Explosion, which talks about how there's mediums and psychics like almost on every corner. The main point of it is that book is for the people that want to go out and seek mediums to be aware of certain things and pitfalls and things to avoid, because the foundation only certifies about 15% of the mediums that go through that program, and you can't pay for it either. I think a good analogy would be mediums are kind of like acting teachers. There's a lot of people that are doing it, but there's probably a lot of them that should not be practicing because maybe they haven't developed their skill set. So when did you start actually reading the records, or did the energy healing come first?
I did the Akashic Records first and then energy healing after. And I started this part of my journey just a couple years ago in 2020. The idea of reincarnation and past lives has always been something that has been in my life. Interestingly, I had a game called Past Lives when I was younger.
A game?
A game called Past Lives, and that I still have today, actually, yeah. That just intrigued me so much. So when I heard about the Akashic Records, I was just blown away, and I was just so excited, thinking, oh my gosh, I could really delve in, not just for me, but for people.
I was about to ask that. With a reader or Akashic Records consultant, people that live in that space, as well as shamans, they often do describe that past lives do come up in the sessions, because the mediumship and the Akashic Records and shamanism often live in that space anyways. So what exactly was it that got you interested in the Akashic Records? Was it the game, or was it some kind of event that happened when you were younger?
For reincarnation, or?
What started you on the path that you're on now? Was there an event? Did you see spirits, or was it something that triggered it, or how'd that happen?
That's a great question. Well, when I was really young, I started getting messages about the lessons that I was to learn in this life. So my first lesson that I realized, I mean, now looking back, I can pinpoint the moment of when the lesson dropped down to say, this is something you're going to have to work on at a young age, which was self-love. And that happened in preschool. I remember sitting in the classroom and then having this moment of realizing, oh gosh, I really want love. And I didn't understand it, but as I got older and older, and now looking back, I can see that was the big, big lesson that I had to work on. My first big lesson of my life here on Earth.
So that was a download, or was that channeled, or are they roughly the same thing? I bring that up because those two things, I do believe there's an overlap there, or maybe there's some confusion.
Well, channeling, I believe, is when you're getting messages, and sometimes when there are messages from other spirits on the other side or family members, that can be channeling as well, or from my Akashic record keepers. But the download was this moment I was sitting there and it popped into my head of, you are going to work on self-love in this life. That is something you are going to really work through. And I didn't realize the bigness of it until I started living, and then I was about, I think it was 6, and then 10, and then 12, and then 17 was when I finally finished that lesson of self-love. But that was, that was a long time. It was a big lesson to learn.
It's a big event. When we talk to people that have similar experiences, a lot of them talk about imaginary friends, and when they get a little bit older, they realize those friends were not exactly imaginary. It's got to be pretty frightening. So you mentioned reincarnation a moment ago. What was your first glimpse into that? I mean, was it a past life or was it something different?
Well, I was brought up with reincarnation as being a Hindu, so it was something we would talk about. And so the concept was in my mind. But the first time that I was in the records, I was brought back into a past life. And that was just recently, where I learned about a big life that I had. One of the first experiences of being in the records was a life that I lived where I had a very traumatic death. And I've been working with that one past life for years. And I finally am almost, touch wood, done that lesson and learning and healing and clearing and releasing all of that.
So what was that life like? Do you remember roughly what time period that might have been, decade or century or anything like that? Any markers?
Yes, I have not asked specifically the time frame, but I do know that I was a healer and I had some powers, but I'm going to say it out loud. I had a very traumatic death where I was decapitated and burned in that life. I have a YouTube video that I just did about that, actually. And it was very traumatic because of the reasons why. And so that karma has followed me into this life. So in this current life, I have been working with constant pain in my neck and in my shoulders.
I was just about to ask that. It reminds me of the work that Dr. Ian Stevenson did with reincarnated souls in the present life had injuries and birthmarks which could be traced back to a traumatic death and a gunshot wound or something like that. Very interesting. Did you ever have the inclination to try and research that life to confirm that it did, in fact, take place? Or was it at a time when the research would have been really difficult?
I never thought of doing that. That's a great idea, actually. I don't believe that there were books at that time, but I think the concept of magic and that esoteric world was very, very full in existence at that time.
Like it actually did exist.
Yeah, I believe it did. Yeah, I definitely believe it did.
That sounds like it was a long, long time ago. Like before recorded history or anything like that, or is it kind of hard to tell?
Well, I mean, I can ask. It was before recorded history.
Can you ask them now?
I'm in my record, so yeah.
This is what we do here, is to ask the difficult or the esoteric questions because I'm just like everybody else. I want to know. It's very interesting that you do that. So you mentioned the keepers. Who are the keepers, the Akashic Records keepers?
Well, everyone has an Akashic Record library that holds every life that the soul has ever lived from inception of soul until this present life. So your Akashic Record keepers, everyone has their own, and they look over all these lives. So in the beginning, when I started doing my Akashic Record consulting work, it came to me as a vision of a library. And still sometimes I get the visual of that. And then sometimes it's just the space and I see the record keepers, or they just show me visions of people's past lives or energetic blocks or whatever's coming up for the client. But everyone has their own Akashic Record keepers who look and watch over every life that we've ever had.
That is pretty incredible. The keepers, what do they look like? Are they light beings, or do they appear like we want them to appear? How does that work?
So they have never had a life on this earth. So they come from source and they go directly as an Akashic Record keeper. And there are keepers, masters, lords. So there are different hierarchies there. There are medical masters of the Akashic Records. Those are the ones that I have met, but they've never had a life here. So when I see them, they have flowing gowns and they float. I have yet to skew my vision. It's kind of like I need reading glasses or I need to get a higher prescription to really see their faces. But I have not really focused on that as much. In the beginning, I was really trying, but now I just see their flowing gowns and I'll communicate with them. But I'm so much more preoccupied with what am I supposed to do and where do I need to go when I'm working with the client or when I'm doing something for myself, that I haven't taken the time, but I really should. So that's a good reminder.
When we talk about Akashic Records, a couple things come up. This comes up in shamanism as well. Ancestral agreements and soul agreements. Are they the same thing or not really? How does that work?
Well, ancestral agreements or anything from our ancestors come down. It's believed that we can carry up to 7 generations of ancestral stuff. And so before you come down, you have your siblings or your cousins, and that generational stuff will be divided amongst us. And so we'll say, okay, you know, Johnny, if you're my brother, Johnny, you're going to take this, and Renu's going to take this, and we're going to work on that stuff.
But what if I say, I don't want that? I want all the cool stuff. I want to hang out with the rock stars and the supermodels.
Well, you can hang out with your supermodels. But you can actually say no, and then you can have someone else do it, especially if you have a lot of stuff to work on in your life. So, for example, if you are going to come down and you're choosing to work on a big lesson, like I'm hearing addiction, for example, right? That's a big one. Then your sibling or cousin might say, okay, well, you've got a lot to contend with. I'm going to take more stuff than you because that's a lot to handle. So you divvy it up between yourselves, and sometimes if they don't have cousins or siblings, then that person might be taking on a lot.
The way I understand this is that we have things to work on. It's like someone giving you a stack of books, like you got to read this, that's your assignment, right? How is that different from the life between life space, where we plan our lives, we pick our siblings, or they're already picked for us, and our soul family, soul agreements, right? Is it roughly the same thing, or is it just another method of looking at our assignments? Instead of being in the space, you're in the records, or are the Akashic Records and the life between life space just another room in what is called our Father's house? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. The soul contracts you make with people is very specific to you. So if you come down, so yes, you choose your siblings, you choose your parents. That's the soul, is to choose them. And then you say, okay, let's say, Johnny, you and I are siblings. And I say, okay, Johnny, we're going to make a soul contract where we're going to both work on this one lesson, this one issue, this one karma, whatever it is. And you're going to work it on your stuff and I'm going to work it on mine, and you're going to help me to get through this so we can clear and release or heal whatever we have to do. And so that's what we make as soul contracts. But then with the Akashic Records, yes, we go through that veil, we come down from heaven, and then we just forget all of it, and they watch us and they try to guide us and help us on our path. You might make these soul contracts with people and these lessons to learn, and then when you're here on the earth in the free will realm, you might kind of get deviated from your path and might not really follow through with the lessons that you're learning or you're supposed to learn, which is okay because we make those choices. Yeah, free will. Yeah.
Just so I understand this, it sounds like they're really almost the same thing, or it's part of the same process. It is.
Yes, similar, yeah.
The Akashic Records are part of that space we go into that has many names, the healing space, the bardo, and heaven, and so forth, where we plan in between incarnations our next incarnation. That's all I'm trying to really clear up.
Okay, so the source is up top, and then right below source is the Akashic realm. So it's connected. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah, because unless we actually experience it personally, our linear minds, our earth minds, are not going to really grasp it until we've actually seen the records, right?
Right.
The most important takeaway, I would think, is that we don't really die. Our bodies do, but we keep coming back to learn our lessons. But now that you told me about that, I'd rather just be an Akashic Records keeper and never come back here. But that's probably a discussion for another day, right? All right. Another question about the space and the realm, the spirit realm in general. Spirit guides, I believe you've had experiences with them, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you tell us about that? Because I've been told everyone, without exception, has them, and sometimes more than one, right?
Yes, I have 3. And pretty much, I believe at certain points of your life, you will have one that always is with you from when you're born. And then as you grow, different stages of your life, other spirit guides come in and they help you with different parts of your existence. And so I have with me right now my 2, my third one is there, but she's in the background. So I have 2, one on my left and one on my right now. And same with you. Everyone has 3 spirit guides. So 3. So you have, and at different points of your life, they come in and help you. So right now I have my 2 that are with me, and my third is just, she's kind of sitting in the back watching over.
Are they there now? Mm-hmm. So what are they saying? Like, oh, come on, Renu, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Just get this over with. Or are they saying, hey, this guy actually is pretty good?
No, they're saying that you are a very knowledgeable soul. You just have a lot of questions and you want to experience something to help you have a better understanding, but feeling of it. You want to really experience something so you can say, whoa, that's right.
Either you're reading my mind or you're both right. But yeah, exactly. That is the purpose of the podcast, is to ask questions that all of us have. But until you have the experience, it's hard to really know what it's like to go into the spirit realm where there is no linear time.
If I may say, 2 of your spirit guides are right now next to you. And it's so funny because their hands are folded and they're saying he has had experience. He's just not aware.
Are they rolling their eyeballs like, when is this guy ever going to get this?
Not at all. Not at all. They're actually very funny, and they're saying that you're a one of a kind and you're funny, but that you just have to believe. And you do, but you want to see something. And you have had moments in your life where you've seen something amazing, but you're just not sure. And you're like, really? So that's what they're saying. You know, you'll get there, they're saying. But they're both like chuckling, it's really funny.
You know what? This is really weird. First of all, I want to ask it, what are their names? Do you know that or not?
I can ask them if you'd like.
Definitely. I'm not going to reveal what someone else told me a long time ago, but I would like to know their names, to know that they're actually listening. I've been told by a lot of intuitives, with people that are experiencers, that they are funny, they do have a sense of humor, and they can get exasperated when we're not really getting it.
Oh gosh, on a personal note, I'll tell you something. When I just had my records read, and I haven't had them read in years, and a colleague read them, and I asked a question, and he started to laugh. And I said, what's so funny? He said, you make them laugh. I said, why? He said, because you're always asking the same question, and you need to shift the questions, right? And he said, they're just kind of like tired of it. And I said, oh God, I was like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, and then he was laughing because he said, you say the same thing over and over and over again.
In all seriousness, that they do have human traits, it seems like humor, that type of thing.
Yeah. And they love us and they support us and they just want the best for us. So there's just this unconditional love and support. And the most important thing to know is that they cannot intervene in our life unless we ask for help. So unless you verbally say out loud, oh my gosh, angels, spirit guides, universe, help me, please, they cannot intervene because it's a free will realm.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, you have to say the words. Yeah, you have to ask. The angels are always willing to help you. The universe, you can ask the universe if you sit calmly and you still your body and you pleasantly and calmly ask the universe for help, the universe will be so willing to help you. But it can't be a demand and it can't be in a fearful state. It has to be something so simple as, universe, please just help me find my way, or whatever it is. And you say it calmly and with love, the universe will be happy to just help you on that.
Okay, so you mentioned angels a moment ago, and I do believe for a lot of us mortal folk, obviously, that there's some confusion between angels and spirit guides. I've been told angels have never been human, whereas spirit guides might have had a human life, or maybe all of them did. What does your experience tell you?
I'm hearing that spirit guides have had human experiences and that not all angels have.
Some angels have been human at one point?
Yes, that's what I'm hearing. Some have.
Interesting.
And some have been anointed to the angel realm.
Like a promotion?
Yes.
So let's switch gears for a moment. You've had a lot of experience with the realm, the spirit realm. Speaking of which, I think you have had some experience with family members or friends that have passed away that have made contact. Tell us what that's like.
Well, a lot of the times, if a family member wants to come down and give you a message, they will. They can come through a medium, as you were talking about earlier. Or sometimes for me, I've had family members come in my sleep and they visit me in dreams. When my father passed away 2 years ago, I was very distraught and I was very sad. About a week after he passed, I had a dream where he was sitting right next to me. And every time I've seen my father in my dreams, he doesn't really talk, but he is presenting as healthy, young, happy, and he has this jovial smile, and he just looks so content. And to me, he's showing me I'm okay, I'm happy, I'm healthy, and I'm with you. So he always ends up sitting next to me and having this really beautiful smile and just such contentment that I feel so great. And then I'm always saying, talk to me, but he doesn't really talk. And then when I kind of get a little pushy about it, then he kind of dissipates and goes away. But amazingly, a couple of days ago was my father's anniversary, the 2-year anniversary. And that night before, I was visited by an uncle of mine who just recently passed. And I was surprised because I thought it was going to be my dad. So in the dream, I kept looking behind him and I said, "Where's my dad?" And he said, "What, I can't love you too?" So that was really nice. And he said, "I love you very much also." And I said, "Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much for visiting me."
I'm curious about something. What date was the anniversary? Because you said that was recently.
June 6th.
That was a couple of days ago. Because what I've been told, two things, and this comes up a lot when you do see your family members or friends in dreams, they tend to look like they're like in their prime. They're like 30 and they're healthier and all that good stuff. And also when it's only been a short period since they passed on, they still haven't really learned to really communicate. So that takes time.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah.
This is not from a book. These are experiencers, because all we really try to do on the show is connect the dots and the things that come up over and over again, where there's like a consensus, right? To make sense, because I'm not an experiencer, I don't think. Imagine if you were listening or watching Howard Stern interview a medium, he'd probably say something like, how do you demonstrate that this is really valid? Because most people think it's just a bunch of BS.
Totally. And I have to really make a point to say that you do know what you're talking about, because for me, I'm so close to that concept of my dad and my uncle, my loved ones, and they are very, very young in their new world, right? It's only been so many years. So when I have clients whose family members come across and we have conversations, it's because they've been gone for a longer period of time, or if I'm in the records, they communicate to me that way. But when I'm just in the sleep realm, in the astral realm, when we sleep, when the soul comes down to communicate, I really appreciated your point, because it's true. No wonder he just smiles. That's all they can do because it's still so new, right? But when I'm in my normal day life, I do have a connection with my dad and my uncles, and I can communicate with them that way. But it's so different in that astral realm. So I appreciate your reminding me of that. So you do know what you're talking about, Johnny. You know.
I'm threatening to become somewhat respectable, but I always consider myself a student like everybody else. And hopefully other people can relate to that rather than someone who positions themselves as like some guru, which I am most certainly not. If anything, I'm like an anti-guru, but that's a discussion for another day. But it's very true, because when I talk to people that have had afterlife communication or dream visitations, the same type of things come up. Just like when you talk to somebody who had a near-death experience, the characteristics, they're not identical, but they're very, very similar, you know?
Right.
And it just confirms the things that I read years and years ago. So
yeah.
You also think in the scope of your work that everything is a spiritual awakening. Is that true?
I believe so, yes. And I just made a video about it, so check it out on YouTube. But yeah, I do believe so.
In your experience, what else do we really need to know on this topic, at least for today?
What a spiritual awakening is really just a shift in your perspective, right? It's a moment when you're thinking about one thing, for example, your career or your life, or as you said, you started reading about NDEs, near-death experiences, and then it just shifted your perspective into something.
No question. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just opens your eyes into something totally different where you realize, okay, I need to shift how I'm doing this, or I need to change, or it could be someone that's having a job and all of a sudden they realize, whoa, I don't want to do this way anymore. I need to shift it and change it, or that change, that perspective shift, or that view. That's really what a spiritual awakening is. And you can call it a shift in your perspective or a spiritual awakening, but I believe we have that so many times in our existence. I mean, like I was talking about my self-love, I had that happen over and over from a young age until I finally was able to say, I'm done with this. I want to heal this. I want to really clear this. And then I was able to at the age of 17, but it took me years and years and plateaus. And we have these perspectives and these spiritual awakenings about so many parts of our lives, which are these lessons to learn. So, because truth be told, I don't want to come back and relearn that lesson. I want to get rid of that so I can move on, So if I do come back in my next life, I don't want to deal with that same old stuff, right?
True. And no question about that. I don't think anyone really wants to come back and repeat the same lesson over and over again. It's like going back to 11th grade. Why would you want to do that? You want to become a senior, then move on, go to college or do whatever,
right.
Go travel Europe or whatever you're going to do. In your work, what are some of the biggest takeaways of your clients once they work with you and they get to where they need to go?
Well, I think the biggest, most important thing is knowing that they're supported, that they always have support from the angels, from the universe, that they are divine in physical form, so that in any moment in their life, they can know they have help, right? That's number one. Number two is we work on clearing a lot of these blocks, these energetic blocks that are in our bodies that are preventing us from living our lives fully and freely, pain-free, emotional clutter and mental and emotional stuff that's kind of stuck in us. We do work on a lot of those energetic blocks so that they don't have anything stopping them from living their life. And then also working on healing some wounds, some deep wounds that maybe are from this life, from our childhood, the inner child work, or from past lives, or bleed through concurrent lives, or it's believed that everything is all happening at once, right? So working on some of these issues or themes that are coming up, working on that so that we can live and be present. And the truth is, you're not going to be this happy-go-lucky person in your life, right? Life happens. Life is about ups and downs. But it's about being content and being able to have these moments of life happen where you're not derailed, you're not taken out, and you can just experience them, because with the lows, you can appreciate the highs, right? And when you're at the highs, you can look back at the lows and say, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful to be where I am today. So it's about that presence, it's about that appreciation, and it's just about being still and being here.
Would you agree that a session with a reader, an Akashic Records reader or a consultant, you can get the same results with a past life regression hypnosis session, but this might be a little bit less scary or less intense?
Yeah, I've done past life regression and it's really cool. It is intense. And for me, the work that I do is I'll be the one to go back into the records and we'll talk about the situation. Because really the truth is to find the root, the origin of where whatever issue we're working through is. I don't like the person to have to relive the issue. So we find it, we find the root, and we work on clearing and healing it. We put some energy healing at the same time. And then we clear it. In my experience of doing this for a bunch of years, I really don't talk about too much unless the person can handle it. But otherwise, sometimes the ego comes in, the mind comes in. And if you talk about something that happened in a past life, then the person tends to perseverate on, whatever that was. And then they'll say, oh gosh, I had to deal with this and that. And then they bring it into the present life. So no matter how much healing and work you do, they keep calling in that energy back, right? So it just doesn't leave them. And the mind wants to hold on to those things and say, you were this and you were that and whatever it was. It's not helpful to heal and clear it. So I might talk about the issue, I might talk about what the root was, and then we do some energy work, and then we clear it throughout all time, space, dimension, and reality, and we go through the timelines to clear it wherever else it touched in their existence, in their timelines of life.
So hopefully in the future, we'll have buildings where we have Akashic Records readers, past life regression specialists, energy healers, and even mediums all in the same location. Do you think we'll see that sometime in the future?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure we'll be looking at the more holistic side of things. And instead of putting a Band-Aid on it, and listen, Western medicine is huge. It's important. But it's very nice to have the marriage of the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain so that then we can work together. And you do see that. You do see some medical intuitives helping physicians or some psychics helping, police cases and things like that. So it is more commonplace. But I do find that we won't be using as much pharmaceutical assistance, but to really get to the root of it so that we can clear it and release it so that it doesn't necessarily keep coming up for people and some of that trauma and stuff.
I agree, because some of these alternatives can clear certain things, whereas going to a psychiatrist for a year and it's not inexpensive, that method often doesn't cure the problem. That's another thing I've noticed about past life regression and similar modalities.
Yeah, I think talk therapy is really, really powerful. If you find the right person that you connect with and you can work through and learn some of those lessons in this life, you can heal it. And yes, of course, there's that past life component. But if they say in that moment and they work through and they realize, okay, you know what, this is what I really need to heal, that inner child work or whatever it is, they can actually work on clearing and healing it in that way too. Because again, remember, it's that shift in your perspective, to realize if they have that talk therapy and to realize that this person guides them into understanding, oh, okay, it wasn't my fault or whatever it was, that can be really powerful. But it's a process. No matter what work you do, whoever you see, you have to do the work and you have to be willing to do the work.
It sounds to me that it's probably a better idea to go to the Akashic Records reader or the medium or do the past life regression first before you do the talk therapy. It might be more efficient to get to the core thing that you need to talk through. I just figured that out just now. So, Renu, great stuff. Thanks for coming on to the show. How can our listeners find you online?
Well, I have a YouTube channel, Spiritual Awakening to Heal. And I also have a free gift called Spiritual Awakening Kit, where they can download some tools and techniques and meditation to help them on their spiritual awakening path.
You've been listening to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. In the meantime, you can find more information on closertovenus.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.